Hi everyone, and welcome back to The Business Edge, the official podcast of the Feliciano School of Business at Montclair State University. I'll be your host, Erin Blake. In this episode, you'll hear from Ralph LaRossa, President and COO of PSEG Power and Montclair State University Board of Trustees member. LaRossa will explain how he applied skills learned during his youth to achieve objectives in the power industry. Let's get started.
Good evening. I'm very happy to have Ralph here tonight to speak to you for a number of reasons. Ralph is the president and COO of PSEG Power, which is the unregulated subsidiary of PSEG. He was previously the president and COO of PSEG, the regulated utility. New Jersey company, New Jersey boy, but more importantly, he's from Rutherford, which is where I'm from. We both grew up in town, went to local schools. As Dean said, I'm a Montclair graduate, but hopefully you'll hear from Ralph's story, the opportunity here to go to school locally here and take advantage of all the opportunities that he's taken advantage of through hard work, discipline, opportunities, and taking advantage of opportunities when they present themselves. So without further ado, please ask questions, but Ralph LaRossa.
Thanks, man. So one thing Jim didn't say, so we grew up in the same town, and then we raised our kids in the same town in Allendale, and then we played softball a little bit together, right? And we might have had a few beers together during the day as well. So a lot of stories we probably could tell about each other. So I'm going to start in the beginning. So what's that? What's that? Come on. Close. It's close to the Roman Empire. That is my 23andMe DNA. I really started in the beginning. That's where it all started. I am the son of an immigrant. My dad came to this country when he was 12 years old, and all my grandparents immigrated from Italy. But that's where I come from. That's where all my pieces come together. So it looks like the Roman Empire. That's what everybody's telling me. But a lot of it's in Italy. But the one thing it isn't, there isn't anything from the U.S., at least 3 generations back for sure. So that's where it all started. My dad, I'll talk about him a lot, is a high school dropout. Went to Ferris High School in Jersey City. Dropped out of high school because he had to help support his mom and dad, who were living in Jersey City, and tried to work at a big utility in New Jersey. Didn't get a job, because when he dropped out of high school, the day he dropped out, there were 3 of them that dropped out together, 2 Irish guys and the Italian. The 2 Irish guys got hired. The Italian didn't get hired. The Italian was told if he wants to work at PSEG, he's got to go to the other side of Jersey City and work in the gas department because the Italians dig ditches. True story. So that's my dad's side. My mom wanted to go to school, wanted to better herself, wanted to go to a university, tried to go to Jersey City State University, and dropped out because her parents wouldn't pay because she was a woman, and why would she need a job? That's who I am. That's how I was raised. My parents wanted to make sure that they made things better for me, and so I had the opportunity, so that's why I wanted to start with that, because that's my DNA. That's where a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about comes from. Make sense? So we left Jersey City, and we moved to Lyndhurst. Anybody from Lyndhurst? Well, first of all, is there anybody from Jersey City here? There you go. See? Anybody from Lyndhurst? When we came across, there was pig farms in Secaucus in the old days. We came across the pig farms. We got to Lyndhurst. And when we got to Lyndhurst, then we made the big move across to the very ritzy area of Rutherford. That's where Jim is. Anybody here from Rutherford? Somebody, please, besides me and Jim? There we go. Rutherford High School, not far from here, right down Route 3. It's a pretty neat little place, Group 2 school, very small, but taught me a tremendous amount. I played a number of sports there, none well. But I learned how not to treat people from a few coaches. And I can tell you names, but I won't get into the details now. But I can tell you that how not to treat people. I learned a little bit there. I also wound up to go into engineering because of a chemistry teacher, Hal Lazar. Remember Hal? Unique individual, probably one of the most eccentric guys in the school. But he said to me, "Come, I'm going to teach you all about this chemistry stuff." And I got interested, and I wound up going to Stevens Tech in Hoboken. How did I wind up going to Stevens Tech? Dumb luck. I was supposed to go to the Naval Academy. I had applied to and was given a nomination to the Naval Academy, and it fell apart because they wanted an athlete from Bergen Catholic. That bad athleticism came back to haunt me again. And they wanted an athlete from Bergen Catholic who happened to be a football player, and they asked me to go to the prep school, and I said, "I'm not going. If you don't want me up front, then you're not going to get me." And the only application I still had active at that point was at Stevens. So I wound up going to Stevens. And I was a commuter student. You all are commuting, obviously, for the MBA program, right? Most people here? Nobody's living on campus. It's not easy to do. Being a commuter student is not easy. I give you all the credit in the world, because it's a lot easier not to show up to class than it is to show up at class. It's really hard. Right? So being a commuter student, going back and forth, it's really tough. One bit of information I forgot back here, I ran into my wife. Married my high school sweetheart. We have 2 kids. My son is a junior at the University of Miami, and my daughter graduated from Indiana University last year. Talk about diversity. Anybody go to Miami and Indiana in the same week? You can see it all. You can see it all. Believe me, you can. But proud that school had developed 2 students that were able to have children that wound up being that diverse and that being able to live in that background. It was kind of neat. My wife was a vice president at Merck. She was the youngest VP at Merck ever. She wound up giving that up and staying home with the kids at some point, because that's a choice that she made. Tough situation to be in the middle of. And I was looking back as I was doing income taxes. It took us 8 years to get back to what she was making, and as I stayed at PSEG, because I loved what I did, which I'll get into a little bit more as we're going. So, that's me. So what? That's the so what. Those are the 3 things that I hope you take away from the conversation today as we go through. I have a tremendous diverse background of experiences. I try to learn every single day, and I still try to learn every single day from somebody and some experience that I've had. And most importantly, whatever you do, try to surround yourself with great people. I told you about my family, my mom and dad. They're pretty neat people. I was lucky. I surrounded myself with great people there. I married my high school sweetheart. We actually were in a 2nd grade class picture together. I knew kind of early on I was marrying up. That was a good thing to do. I married up, surrounded myself with the best people. And then every day that I go to work, I've surrounded myself. My friends that I've had and the people that I've interacted with have all been excellent people. So those are the 3 takeaways. You can all get up and leave, or you can hang out and listen to the rest of the story. And I'll get into a little bit about PS, but that's the message that I'm trying to leave you with today. So, these are the diverse experiences that I had before I started working at PSEG. How many of you have done those jobs? Okay. Top left, I was a paper boy. Got that paper route. First paper route I got from my wife. She was done. She gave me her paper route. I knew I was in love. I pushed carts at a grocery store in Rutherford. Then I moved up. I really made it big, and I got to stock the shelves at the grocery store as well. Then I became the most popular person in high school. At the age of 17, I was able to deliver liquor. Nothing was better. And boy, did I learn a lot of lessons. Then I pumped gas. I pumped gas at the Exxon station right here on Route 3. Put a car on fire there. I'll tell you about that as we go into. It was a lot of fun. bunch of petty school kids. Anybody go to petty school? Do you know petty? No. Petty school, it's kind of elite. Nothing better than watching a bunch of petty school kids run down Route 3 when their truck went on fire. I had a ball that day. It was a lot of fun. Then I worked, I was actually a vendor at the old Giant Stadium. Sold hot dogs and sodas. Learned a lot from that job. Touch a little bit about that. I actually delivered sprinkler pipe on a truck. That was one of my greatest accomplishments. I was the genius to figure it out. I take out the Hangster map. You know, we used to have maps to get around, and that Waze. And it didn't tell me I couldn't go on the parkway with my truck. So I was like 18 years old driving this truck down the parkway, and the cops just pulled me over and said, "Are you that stupid?" I said, "Yes, I am, sir." Then I loaded trucks at my dad. When my dad didn't get the job at PS, he went to work in the garment industry. Remember, we used to have that here in New Jersey. 40 years he worked in the garment industry making children's dresses. And he taught me one of my best life lessons ever when I was loading trucks. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. And then the last job I had was I was working at a place called Ryerson Steel on Route 440 in Jersey City. And we used to fabricate metals. And that's coming back right now, and I'll tell you a little bit about what that is. But that's my diverse background. Everywhere along every one of those jobs, and all throughout my career, I just kept trying to learn. And I did that when I went to PSEG. I've held a number of different jobs at PS. I started out literally on a backhoe in ditches. That's what we used to do back then, working in the gas department. So they got what they wanted. They got a LaRossa digging a ditch. I actually wound up digging a ditch in the gas department like they told my dad to do at some point. And then I moved on. I took a job as an engineer in the gas department, ran a couple places, but then I made the big leap. It was almost unheard of to go from the gas department to the electric department. And then I went through a bunch of different spots there, did some IT work, but all along the way, the message I'm leaving you with is I never said no to an offer, to an opportunity. Never once. I didn't get my MBA either. There were 6 of us. There were actually 8 of us that started together. 6 of us are still at the company. The other 5 all got their MBAs. I'm not saying don't get your MBA. Oh, I'm also a Montclair State trustee. So I definitely don't want to say don't get your MBA, right? But the reason I'm telling you that is that all along the way I kept asking for opportunities at work, and there was always a special project to work on. And so that's how I got my MBA. I also think I got my MBA a little bit with all those jobs that I had as I was growing up. All right. First job that I used to really move ahead was that paperboy route. And I used that and I translated it into what I did in the electric department. How could that possibly be? Well, when I was a paperboy, I got hit by a car. And what's the most important thing you can do at PS? What do you have to do every day? You have to work safely. And when I got hit by that car, I was lucky enough to have the bag on the opposite side. So when the lady hit me on Carmita Avenue, I went over and I landed on the bag. And I never forgot that incident for a lot of reasons, but I never forgot it. And so what did I do when I moved over to the electric department to make a difference? I remembered the day when I got hit by the car because I had a barrier, an additional barrier for safety. And so when I came over to the electric department, we would put somebody in the burn center every 6 to 8 months because there would be a flash on a pole. And I hate to tell you, but we had a fatality every year. Somebody that came to work never made it home to their families. Every single year. It's been 11 years. It's been 11 years since that happened. And we did one simple thing. We added an additional barrier. We put in a quick trip on the circuits. So just like you all have in your kitchens and your bathrooms, the GFI, automatic trips, we had them. And we didn't use them because we were afraid the lights might go out too often. We were killing people because we didn't have that extra barrier in there. So I took what I learned from being a paper boy, and I said, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put an extra barrier in. And that got me instant credibility with all the line workers in the electric department because we didn't blink and we stayed with it. So what did I learn from before? I applied to my new job. Working as a vendor at Giant Stadium. Well, I wasn't selling beer back then, I was selling soda, but the picture looked good. How did that turn out to be something I learned and applied to all prioritization from a work management standpoint? Any ideas? I was a big Giant fan. I was a big Jet fan. Until the Jet fans started treating me so bad that I became just a Giant fan. Any Jet fans in here? They're all obnoxious to me. They're all so mean to me all the time. But what did I learn? My first lesson in process improvement. How many people taking things on process improvement? Trying to improve the processes, right? I went to school. I'm an industrial engineer, and that's what I wound up learning how to do down the road. But I take what I learned from carrying those vending carts every single day, because what I wanted to do was figure out a way to still watch the Giant games and the Jet games. So I would take 3 or 4 trays, and I would go stand next to the refreshment stand at the end of the first quarter, and I'd sell out. And I go back in, I put my trays down, and I go watch the game. Then the next halftime, I took an extra tray, and I sold out. And I sold more than anybody else because I came up with a process improvement, which was let the fans come to me instead of me walking up and down the stands like an idiot all the time. It worked out really, really well. They caught on at some point. Then they promoted me I was the knockhorse guy, but that's another story. But that's the truth. I used process improvement from then to apply it day in and day out to work management activities, just from a simple thing of being a vendor at a stadium. Took the opportunity, and I tried to learn from it. Ryerson Steel. This is my last little story about my childhood work. I'll get into real work at some point here. But that was a company that was about to go out of business. That company couldn't compete with overseas steel. And so we were struggling every single day to keep that plant open. And every day, I had that job while I was going to school at Stevens. Every day I would post on the wall those sales. And I would watch all those people with families try to figure out, are we going to make it? Are we going to make it the next day? And it struck me so hard. And then I went and worked in a regulated environment. I worked at PSEG. Really tough to not pay your bill and to put yourself out of business. Some people can still figure out how to do it, like Pacific Gas and Electric has figured out. And it's not easy, but you can get yourself in trouble. But I now moved over to the unregulated side. And on the unregulated side, we are battling every single day to sell our electricity into the grid. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But our nuclear plants, and I'll talk to you for days about that and the value I think you get from nuclear. But our nuclear plants are struggling right now. And I go down and I talk to a group like this, and there's 1,200 people in the room, and those 1,200 people have families, and they want to send their kids to school, and they want to do anything. They don't know if the plant's going to be open next week because we can't sell. So I'm pulling on everything that I learned back from those Ryerson Steel days and trying to apply it about how people feel and trying to be empathetic and understand what's going on, but yet be totally open and honest with them. Because that's the one thing I don't think we did at Ryerson. We weren't as clear with people about how dire the situation was. So we're trying to do that so people actually understand what's going on. So that's what I learned from there. 3 decent stories, stuff that you've all done. How many people have worked other jobs before you came here? So you all know something already that somebody else doesn't know. Figure out how to leverage that in your new job or whatever you want to do going forward. You've got an experience already that somebody else doesn't have. Just figure out your place where you can play that game and play it to win in a way that somebody else can't. Okay? All right. So, this is about learning from your experiences and making sure that you learn from and you have good people around you. So, the one in the middle is the one that means the most to me, though. and it kind of got funny trying to figure out how we were going to put this in there, but that's the guy with the hand truck, loading the trucks. Anybody ever use a hand truck here? How do you use a hand truck? There you go. There's somebody that's worked. Got to hold it up. Got to balance it, right? So I was a freshman I was about to be a freshman at Stevens. And my dad had me working, and he said, go load the trucks today. And he gave me a hand car for the first time. And he held it, and I held it like this. And I loaded the truck for 8 hours. I went back and forth, and I loaded the truck. At the end of the day, my father called me over, and he showed me how to balance it. And it was really easy. And I said, Dad, what'd you do that for? And he goes, because I wanted to tell you that everything you need to know, you're not going to learn from a book. You're going to learn it from other people you're working with, day in and day out. So again, I apologize for all of you from an MBA standpoint, but you ain't going to learn everything you need to know here. You're going to learn it from doing stuff, not just from the book. And my dad was a really smart guy. He might not have finished high school, but that was the best lesson he ever gave me, was just balance the hand truck. You got to learn from somebody else as you're going. And how did I apply that? Well, this is my favorite story. Was anybody alive in 2003 when this happened? The lights went out in the Northeast. Anybody remember that day? That was a brutal day. True story. What I'm about to tell you is absolutely true and made my career. About a week or two before the lights went out, my boss, who was still my boss, Ralph Izzo, comes up to me and he says, hey, do me a favor. We're going to make a change. I want to consolidate some stuff. Take over the electric transmission side of the house. At that point, I was the vice president of engineering, and he said, come and take over the electric transmission. Combine those two things. You won't have anything to worry about. Nothing ever happens. That day, the lights go out. I'm in a meeting with a gentleman who I'm replacing because we're combining the jobs. He's not that happy, as you can imagine. Lights go out. We look out and we see the flares down at the refinery from our building. And when the flares in the refinery are up as high as they are, that means they've lost electricity. So now we know we've got a problem. It's a pretty widespread problem. So we walk down the stairs. We get down into the basement, which is where we had our control center. And we look at the board, and the board is lit up. And when the board is lit up, that's a bad day. It should be all dark. But every wire is out in our territory. And the guy stands behind me, and he says, look at this. They think you're so good, kid, because he's leaving the next day. You got this one. And he walks out. I swear to you, that is exactly what happened. So, okay, what do I do? Turn around. I got my boss, and his boss at that time. We're all standing behind me. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm talking to a few people, and my cell phone goes off. And it's Jim McGreevy, who's the governor. And he got my cell phone because a woman who was the head of communications for our company had just left and had went down to work in his office as the head of communications in Trenton. And she said, here, call this guy. He's probably in the mix, and he'll be able to give you an answer. Okay, Governor, what do you want? He's trying to figure out where he's going to put the state police that day. So what's the order we're going to go in? What's going to happen? I'm by myself. This guy just leaves, and it's me and 6 folks that are working the desk trying to figure out what's going on. I looked around, and I said, you look like you know what you're doing. Well, I got the governor. What am I supposed to tell him? He nailed it. He told me 5 things in a row that were absolutely right. I went to the senior-most person, happened to be a minority. I don't care about that stuff because I got that background. It tells me not to worry about that. I can go to somebody who does the right thing. And I'm watching him, and he tells me what to do. I said, Governor, I read it to him, and everything he said was right. Everything he said was right. The next day, McGreevy's in New Jersey, in our offices in Newark, and he's holding a press conference thanking us for the great information that he got and what a great company we were. And I'm like this. I didn't do anything. The gentleman was off already that was there. Matter of fact, he retires in 2 weeks from the company. And all of a sudden, I am the operations expert for PSEG. And I'm telling you, that's exactly what went on. It was no more than that. But it was because of my background that I was able to turn around and ask the right person the right question, and he had the right answers. And I became the expert on operations. So then we wind up, Exelon goes to buy us, and at that point, they're looking for somebody to prove to New Jersey that we're going to stay focused on operations, and they're looking for somebody with a Jersey accent, and I get named president. No more complicated than that. Dumb luck. All dumb luck. Being in the right place, being able to execute when I had the opportunities, pulling on my background. Don't get frustrated. There's 100 people that could be doing what I'm doing. Don't think it's going to happen to you tomorrow. Just work hard. You might tap the right person on the right shoulder at the right time, and you might wind up in the right place at the right time. This is the way it goes. I'm telling you, there's probably 15 to 25 of you in this room today that could be the CEO of a major company. Whether you get that opportunity or not is not your fault. Do not beat yourselves up about it. Just work as hard as you can and know that you did the best you can. Because all the rest of it just happens to be in the right place at the right time. Don't tell anybody at PS that I said what I just said. All right? All right. So that was the blackout. That's where we got to. Fast forward a little bit, this little storm comes in. Superstorm Sandy. Another day where we had no idea what we were doing. And I promise you we didn't. We were nowhere near prepared for what we needed to be prepared for on that day. And I won't spend a lot of time on this because I don't want to make you all tired about the stories about my life, but this was all about having 10,000 people that you could count on. And having that ethic that was worked into, that we had opportunities to learn from each other over the times. Right before this storm, we had a tropical storm come through. The year before that, we had what was called the October snowstorm. If you remember, the snow came on all of the trees, knocked down all the wires. We learned from those 2 incidents. We had so many reviews of what happened during those storms. We were pretty ready. We didn't know what we were doing for a storm like this because it's never happened before. Never did you have the type of flooding that we experienced. Never did you have salt water get into electric equipment the way it got into the electric equipment those days. But we were able to overcome all of that because of the training that we had and the way we were able to lean on each other. So it's just another good example. And we beat the other guys. Right? All you have to do in a lot of cases is just outrun that bear in the woods. Right? No, you got to outrun the other person that's in the woods with you. So the best thing that happened to us was being around JCP&L. And LIPA. Remember what was going on in the newspaper? Cuomo was killing LIPA. The governor of New Jersey was killing JCP&L. We looked like heroes just because we were outrunning the other person in the woods. We never outran a bear. I wish we got lights on faster than we did. But we just outran the other people. So that's the other message to take from this story. Right? You don't have to be the best. You just got to be better than the other person you're running against. All right. So that's my life story. So stop. Let me ask me some questions because now I'm going to get into the PS side. Go ahead.
You gave a lot of examples about how you learned from your experience. So there are a lot of examples about how you've learned from your experience. Do you have any examples about how you learned from somebody doing the wrong thing?
Yeah. So again, most of that, we've been pretty blessed at PS. But I'd say most of the stuff that I've learned from is by watching other companies around us. Right? So I think JCP&L is an example of somebody who, they're not bad people. They want to do the right thing. They made one fundamental change in their business model that we didn't make. They outsourced overhead line workers. They decided they were going to reduce the workforce because some book, some spreadsheet said that was the right thing to do. The spreadsheet does say the best thing to do is to outsource that. The problem is, if you don't keep your people busy, you don't have anybody to call when the lights go out. And that's something you're going to learn from a spreadsheet. That was something you had to learn from being out there. You got to put people on call. You got to have pagers. We talked about that earlier. You got to have people available to you. So if the lights go out, do I want to call Fletcher Kramer or Sanzari to come back and put the lights back on? No, I want to call the PS people, the folks with sunbursts on their shirts. So they outsourced. We increased our overhead workers. We did just the opposite. We took the contrarian view. Could we have gotten beat up by the regulators for not doing everything from a cheapest standpoint? Maybe. But nobody cares about being the cheapest when your lights are out. And that was the decision we made. Most of the industry actually went the way JCP&L did. We did something a little bit different. Come on, ask some questions. Yes?
How much have your personal failures helped you shape who you are and help you get to the point that you're at?
The question was about my personal failures help me work out. 100%. It's all about the save, right? Being able to save yourself. Whether it was during when the lights went out, that was a failure on my part. I didn't know what I was doing. That's a fundamental failure. But the save was turning to somebody who didn't know what they were doing. So all those things every day, it's the story. That's what I was trying to point out to you. You're not going to have every answer. The biggest failure you can have is thinking you have every answer. That is absolutely the biggest failure you can have. You think you're the smartest person in the room? I can tell you one thing, you are not. There is no way you are. Don't kid yourself. Somebody else has seen something that you haven't seen. Yes?
As you look back on your vast array of experiences and jobs, like what would you tell your younger self in today? Or what advice would you give?
So my biggest regret is that my wife didn't keep working. That's my biggest regret. From a career standpoint, I don't have a lot of regrets. I did what I loved to do. I loved it so much, though, that I wanted to stay working. And when we made that decision, we went a different route because I loved what I do. If you take those three things and combine it with a career that you care about, it's really hard to beat. Don't go to work every day being miserable. Don't do it. It's no way to go through your life. So I don't regret anything because I loved what I did every day. It was a little bit of being a fireman. It was a little bit about being a problem solver. It was a lot of working with people. I liked doing it. 100%. Yes?
What was your greatest accomplishment in your career?
My greatest accomplishment? Well, I could give you a bunch. I mean, to me, everybody going home safe is the number one. The last fatality we had was a gentleman by the name of Joe Midgard. Joe died right up here in Caldwell. Joe and I were the same age. This happened 12 or 13 years ago now. And we were working together in Clifton at the Clifton Electric Department. And I used to see Joe all the time, and I talked to all the union fire, do everything. And Joe went out to work, and he was what we call a troubleshooter. That's somebody that works by themselves. So they're accountable to no one but themselves. And Joe was in the truck. He parked the truck, put his cone out, went up in the air, what we would call a chop meat job. Just had to cut something free. It was in the air. And when he went to come down, couldn't get the bucket to work, jerked it one more time, and the tree that was caught on his boom snapped, and Joe shot through the air. Joe landed in the street. Joe had the most expensive piece of safety equipment that you could have as a harness to wear in the bucket next to him. Joe didn't put it on. We didn't have the extra barrier. Didn't have whatever that extra barrier was that Joe wanted. And I made a commitment to myself at Joe's funeral when I watched his little girl, who was the same age as my little girl, pushing his casket down the aisle in a church that she was probably hoping she'd be walking down the aisle with him in a different way. that I would do everything I could to make sure people went home the same way. So when I left the utility, after 12 years, we had taken earnings from $300 million to $900 million in 12 years. That's kind of unheard of in the utility industry. We had rebuilt a tremendous amount of the infrastructure. We survived a bunch of storms, and I told every one of the employees in my going away as I walked around, my biggest accomplishment was that people went home safe. You can't take that back. I keep in my desk, when you open up my desk every day, big company, do stupid things. Somebody sent me, because I would sign all of the anniversary cards for all the employees, somebody sent me Joe's after he had passed. The computer spit it out. So I always keep that in my desk. So when I open my desk every day, Joe's name's there. So I remember him, and I remember the commitment we made. So that's a downer. Got to get back up, right? What? You got another one? I do. Go ahead.
So we talk a lot about when we learn about business, we learn about the hard facts. Do you have anything in regards to teaching your leaders about ethics that you can give us insight into?
Play to win every day and don't be the Patriots. That's what we tell them. Play hard to win every day and don't be the Patriots. You want to win everything you're doing every day, but do not cheat. Just keep it that simple. Do not cheat. Doesn't get you anywhere at the end of the day. Sometimes you wind up getting caught doing something at some point in your life. Yeah. Fight hard every day. I actually have a picture of the Patriots and the Giants in my office, and yeah, so it's all right. I told you I was a Giant fan. All right, I'm gonna switch over. It's 6:37. Do people have to leave? What do you want to do? Do you want to take a 5 minutes? What works from a timing standpoint?
Maybe you could give us maybe a good 10 minutes overview from the public service side, and then
Okay. All right. So I'm going to run through PSEG for you real quick. That is a forward-looking statement. That means that everything I'm going to tell you is a lie, so you can't trade our stock. Right? That's what that means. That's the warning. No, this is a really skinny down version because actually we release earnings on Wednesday, so we have to be very careful about what we say and so on and so forth. So it's a skinny down version. This tells you a little bit about who we are. You can read the numbers. This is the spreadsheet. That tells you the spreadsheet. Right? It's one of the largest electric companies. We got assets worth over $42 billion, yada, 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 going down the list. It's a pretty decent-sized company. This is how we operate. These are our 3 core values. We're going to operate excellently. We're going to do the best we can every single day, safe, reliable operations. We're going to have a safe balance sheet, a good balance sheet, and we're only going to invest in stuff that makes sense. Right? So what did I translate this for all the people that were working? People were going home the way that they came. We were going to keep customers' lights on and their gas and their houses warm. That's the left-hand side. The middle part was that we were not going to mess up anybody's pension. That's what the middle said. That's how we translate that into for each individual person. So if we have a good, strong company, what it means to them is that they're going to have a pension at the end of the day. And that from an investment standpoint, we're not going to do something like an Enron. We're going to invest in stuff that matters. Pipes and wires. That's what we do. And our plants that generate electricity, which I'll go into. That's the common theme that's in here. We have 2 major companies, the electric and gas. Those are the folks that you see every day in the trucks. It's our electric and gas transmission and distribution business. That's the company that I ran for 12 years, actually a little less than that, from 2006 to end of 2017. And you can see the net income. When my team and I took over, we were making $260 million. So you can see what we're making now, $973. I was asked for a bunch of different reasons to go move over and try to see what I could do on the generation side of the business. Generation is a competitive generation business. Every single day we bid into a marketplace and we say what we can make electricity for. We not only bid in, but we have to buy all the fuel, and then we sell the output on the marketplace. So we have a trading organization. I didn't have any knowledge of how that all worked. So if I was going to do anything else in the company, it was important for me to learn that other side of the business, which is what I've been doing for the last 18 months. So we generate electricity, we boil water. It makes steam, steam turns, it makes the turbine turn, and that's how we make electricity. I tell everybody we boil water. We boil water by either burning gas, we have a little bit of coal left, very, very little, because we're trying to get completely out of the coal business for a lot of reasons. But there's a need for our one coal plant in Connecticut to continue to operate for another 2 years for reliability purposes. So we've got that up there. A lot of natural gas and nuclear. Let me do a little sales job for you on nuclear. You're going to read in the newspaper, we're asking for subsidies for nuclear. Everybody read that? Okay. So we're asking for subsidies for nuclear. The bottom line is that electricity today is being sold in the marketplace for about $27 a megawatt hour. It costs us around $31, $32 to make electricity from a nuclear plant. Why did we just not shut the plants down and then ask for a subsidy? I shut down a coal plant in Jersey City, a coal plant in Mercer County. We eliminated 600 jobs, found jobs for every one of those people, by the way, in other parts of the business, and we took $1.2 billion write-off because we had tried to be the good company and put back-end technology on to clean up the coal emissions, but it still wasn't enough, and we just shut those plants down. We didn't ask for any subsidy, we just went away. Why do you think we asked for potentially to give us a subsidy on nuclear? Well, you're a setup man, I can't let you answer that. Go ahead.
It's clean, reliable, and then also the economy in the south. Power plants are really, really, really far south to the Delaware Memorial Bridge. So that's pretty much the only economy there is down there.
Yep, dead on. You've been listening to us. We got to get everybody to listen to us. It's the only, it supplies 50% of the power in New Jersey right now, those nuclear plants, and 90% of the carbon-free generation in New Jersey comes from those power plants. 90%. So we asked for a subsidy of $10 a megawatt hour. Anybody want to guess what the subsidy is for, probably will be for offshore wind? And why are we doing offshore wind? Because it's carbon-free, right? Subsidy for offshore wind, $70. How about solar? Everyone want to take a guess what the subsidy is for solar? It's over $100. So we just said to policymakers, before we shut, because we are shutting, if you want to keep us open, this is the way you can do it. So we left that out there for people. And that's the conversation we're in the middle of right now. We're taking a beating over it. I think it's okay to take a beating over it because I want to do the right thing for the environment. Another walking around information for you. When Oyster Creek closed, Oyster Creek was a power plant not run by us. It was a nuclear power plant in the Toms River area. That shut down. The gas plants in New Jersey increased production by 20%. So if you want fossil fuel, shut our plants. We have fossil plants. You need some of them. As I said, we're getting out of the carbon business as we can on the coal side, but you need some of the fossil. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. So that's that side of the house. This tells you a little bit about each one of the companies, how many customers we serve, the assets in each one of those, and again, the megawatts that we generate. We took over Long Island. I told you the story about how well we did in Sandy. Governor Cuomo called us and asked us to come take over Long Island because of the job we did in New Jersey. So we got a contract to run those assets. We don't own them. We just manage them. This is public information. It's about $76 million a year. We have about 12 people there. 12 people getting paid about $76 million to run the place because we put our processes in. Not for any other reason. We were able to do that. We put our brand image on the line. And that's why we got paid what we did. But we were asked to do that. It was a competitive process. We won it from a competitive standpoint, and we had good reliability. This is the way we're structured. The company I have is the one that's in the middle. We do the trading, have a little bit of fossil, like I mentioned, the nuclear plant, and then something called Power Ventures, where we have a ton of what we're doing in the renewable space. So if we move into the offshore wind, that'll be in there, and we have a lot of solar, which I'll show you in a second on this slide. This just talks about those three areas. And again, we'll make these slides available for you if you're interested in them, but it gives you a lot of detail. It's here. Talks about what we've done in each one of the areas. And again, I won't get into a lot of details. That's our service territory. For those of you that are not familiar with PSEG, take a straight line between the George Washington Bridge, the Ben Franklin Bridge in Philadelphia, go 30 miles on each side, and we pack in 2.6 million customers. 2.2 million customers, 1.8 on the gas side. So 2.6 if you look at unique customers, because we have, not everybody's an electric and gas customer. Heavily weighted on the electric side to our commercial plant. So a lot of people using air conditioners. That's the weight that's on there. And on the gas side, it's a lot of residential homes that are in there. We are dead set on moving in the right direction on the clean energy front. We have a ton of things going on that we're doing through the utility on clean energy. Everything from energy efficiency all the way down to energy storage and some electric vehicle infrastructure. We're all in. But we're all in above, because we think the only way to do this is to migrate naturally, to slide in, because if you go too fast, it will be too expensive for all of us. That's the big takeaway to take on our side of the business from what we're trying to do. We believe in climate change. We believe that's an issue, but we also think that everybody has a pocketbook, and we can't put the burden on everybody to go 100% renewables real quick, which is, again, why we raised the issue that we did about nuclear. These are the power plants that I'm currently responsible for. Up and down New Jersey, we have some plants out in Pennsylvania, down in Maryland, Bridgeport, and all the way up in Albany. And then on the top right, those are all of our solar facilities that we have around the country. We have about 400 megawatts of solar that's in place and operating. This is what's in a PPA contract. It's a power agreement, power purchase agreement. So we have a certain return on those based upon the policies that are in those states. You can kind of see the policy of following the green economy are in the states that we're playing in. Pretty straightforward map that you can tell from that. My favorite place, which I haven't gotten to yet, but I'm going to get to, is we have a power plant in Kalealoa. You can't transfer to Hawaii. You got to stay in Clifton. But it's kind of a neat place, I guess, to go visit. I haven't been there yet. Guess what kind of plant that is? It's oil. It's oil. Here's a secret. You ever see those commercials, the Hawaiian Electric people, and everything's solar? Not at night, it's not. They need a power plant. The only power that they can get is an oil plant. It's our old oil plant that's still there, because they can't afford to go 100% storage yet on the batteries. So we'll run it until they want us not to run it anymore. We don't have any desire to do anything. We're just filling a service for them. But that's an oil plant, because you can't get, there's no pipelines out there. And it's still an old oil plant that exists. Long Island, I talked about, it's a 12-year contract. I'm sorry, it was 76 or 65 million a year. I think it might be up based upon the CPI improvements that we've had. We've been killing it out there. Anybody from Long Island? Reliability, everything's improved dramatically. And all we did was put our processes and procedures in place. It's kind of simple to trim a tree. You trim a tree, keep the wire away from the tree. That's what we had to do in Long Island. That was a big piece of the puzzle. We're all aligned. Here's another message I want to leave you with. We don't make policy. Smartest guy in the room comment that I made earlier. Worst thing you can do is go into a governor and tell him what he should be or she should be doing. Don't go in and tell the governor that. What would you like to do? Great. Let's go do that. I said to you, I played sports in high school, not well, but I wrestled. The one thing I learned in wrestling was use the person's weight against them. Right? Anybody a wrestler in here? Right? Don't fight them. Let them push you. Right? And you can pull them along. Right? So when Governor Corzine was here, he wanted to do the solar on the poles. We'd be glad to help you out. It's a very expensive way to get in the solar business, but he wanted to do it from a policy standpoint. Who are we to say no? Governor Christie was all about infrastructure to recover from Sandy. So what did we do? We raised all of our substations. We moved them out of floodplains. We did everything he wanted to do. We didn't force the solar conversation. Governor Murphy's in now. We're listening to what he wants to do. We're getting involved in offshore wind. Don't try to tell people in power that you've got the right answer. Let them tell you what they want to do and try to help them achieve it. That's what that whole story is there about what we were doing over the years. Right? Those are the three different administrations and how we were operating. Yep, 5 minutes, I'll get done. while we were going through this whole time, I talked to you about the growth that was happening when we were able to give our shareholders something back in dividends. Right? You know all that from your MBA class. I don't have to explain that to you. You make money, you give it back to your shareholders, people that invested in you. And we're all in on sustainability. And one of the places that we're tied to is here at Montclair State with the Sustainability Institute. So we're sustainable from a dividend growth standpoint, and we're sustainable from an economy. We're over a 100-year-old company. We want to be a 200-year-old company. And we want to service the energy needs of the customers in New Jersey. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. That's the story.
That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. As always, please email your topics of interest to felicianobiz@montclair.edu or message us on social media. New discussions will be released soon, so be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Google Play. The Business Edge is brought to you by the Feliciano School of Business at Montclair State University. Until next time, I'm Erin Blake, and thanks for listening.